Normally, we would have gotten into this earlier in the show, but, there's a lot of news. We just had the first election since the impeachment probe began. The results out of Kentucky and Virginia have some Republicans concerned, and Donald Trump reportedly, quote, embarrassed. Consider the top Republican in red Kentucky faring about 14 points worse than Trump did in 2016. That's Kentucky's current governor, Matt Bevin, a Trump supporter, who had slammed impeachment the morning of this vote.
Talk to the average person. Ask the next 100 people who come in here if they care about this impeachment process. And they will tell you, almost to a person, that they do, because they find it to be a charade. It's an absolute sham.
NBC News now projecting Democrat Andy Beshear as the apparent winner, but it is certainly close. Beshear running on, among other things, protecting Obamacare. The other headlines out of Virginia. For the first time in a generation, Democrats have total control of that state's government, potentially paving the way for progressive action on a host of issues, including health care and gun reform. And we are joined by someone who knows these issues inside and out, former Democratic Senator from Missouri, Claire McCaskill. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
We are always lucky to have you when you're right here in our newsroom. I was with you the morning of the historic Pelosi impeachment vote. The argument we just heard from Republicans in Kentucky is it would help them in that red state. I think that sounded like a potentially reasonable argument, and yet it didn't seem to be true.
I think the important thing to take out of Kentucky is that Trump couldn't save a very unpopular governor. This governor had attacked, something you don't do is attack the teachers in your state with unreasonable accusations when they were trying to get better wages and working conditions. He was very unpopular. Trump thought he could save him. He could not. The bigger story, I think, honestly, is what happened in Virginia, that you have a total domination of that state. When I first got elected to the Senate, I remember Jim Webb in my class getting elected to the Senate from Virginia by this much. Right. And it was definitely a purple state back then, and not anymore.
And you and Webb were, I'll say it since you might not, you and Webb were seen as real breakout stars of that year, whether you want to call it moderate or just Democrats in redder areas who had shown a way to win statewide.
And I think Democrats also, especially those running for president, look at what Beshear campaigned on. The successful candidate in Kentucky did not campaign on doing away with private health insurance. He campaigned on fixing Obamacare and making sure that Medicaid remains available to people who can't afford health care. And it was the kind of the bread and butter issues that our congressional candidates that beat Republicans in 2018 also ran on.
Right.
It wasn't some of the big ticket structural change things that are dominating some of the discussions in the presidential.
Are you very diplomatically saying stay focused on jobs and health care and don't just talk about reforming democracy?
Prescription drugs, jobs and health care, gun safety.
Sure.
Making sure that we clean up campaign finance. These are the issues that people that will decide this presidential election agree with us on.
Right.
They do not agree with Republicans. And I think in some ways, he's right. The impeachment is distracting, but we have to do it because the facts are there. But I hope that the candidates remember that what families want to hear about is how we're going to make their lives better, not about plans that probably aren't going to come true.
Yeah, and you're saying that you actually agree with the political analysis of Kentucky Republicans who say the impeachment might help them a bit. You just think it didn't help them enough. The last thing I want to ask you about is geography. The Electoral College, in its wisdom or insanity, whatever you want to call it,
feels like insanity now.
Still has a lot of pockets that work for Donald Trump more than if you just had one person, one vote. And yet the suburbs are increasingly a weak spot. Reading to you from a report out of a Washington Post in Virginia, dramatic transition from red to purple is, they say, a story of growing support for your party, Democrats, in the, quote, suburban areas of the state. The defeat of Republican Bevin there in Kentucky was powered in that state's suburban counties.
I think that for the women in the suburbs who are sending their children to school for active shooter drills, they do not understand why nothing is happening. The party that is speaking to them on gun safety, that is speaking to them on other issues that they care about at their kitchen table, is in fact the Democratic Party. The Republicans, with Donald Trump and how he's performing in office, are losing suburban women in record numbers, women who typically have not said, yeah, I'm a dyed-in-the-world Democrat.
Senator McCaskill, as mentioned, knows all about this. Thanks for being here.
You bet. My pleasure.
Appreciate you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.